Okay, so this is designed basically for shooting at things under 10 yards. A lot of people have issues with that because they're shooting in the same standard method that they'd be shooting if they were shooting like 10, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, something like that. Um, a lot of this method is highly dependent upon your stance and where you're shooting from because they're drastically going to change. As you're seeing here, she's kind of going into a lunge. She's taking the feet and spreading them further apart than a standard shoulder width stance that we would use. She's bracing that back leg so that it's got her nice and stable, and she's using that front leg kind of as a pivot point to change the angle that she's shooting. So instead of being upright, she can lean forward into the shot a little bit more, and it helps to change the angle that she's shooting. From that position, as she's showing there, you still got full mobility. You can turn side to side to change the angle for what you're shooting at. More often than not, you're shooting at rats like she has here in front of her, or some other small target up close, balloons, something like that. You'll see that she kind of leans forward a little bit. This is a standard shoot using the standard hold like you'd be using at 20 yards. You're going to see that when you shoot that way, you're going to shoot over your target generally. You got lucky on that one and hit it with that. But generally, you're going to end up shooting over your target because you're actually aiming a little bit higher than you want to be. The best way to change your aiming point when you're trying to do this is kind of face walking, for lack of a better description of it. Normally, you're going to anchor like she has there down at the corner of your mouth or down at your jawline. But as you raise further up, what you're actually doing is changing that sight line so you're looking right down your arrow so that you can aim directly at your target. The lower the arrow is down on your face, your line of sight is actually like this, if you can see my picture. As you walk that up, your line of sight changes more flat to what your arrow is. So you're actually looking directly at your target instead of trying to use that compensation like we'd normally do at a longer distance. I know some people shoot that way generally anyway, and that's great, however works for you. Again, this isn't a method that's going to work for everybody. Works for GenRose and I. She's taught a lot of people how to do this. For them, it seems to work well. So try it out. That's all we can say. Again, she's going to lean down to try and get to those closer targets. She's going to bring that arrow up her face more to get a better line of sight down the arrow and get that direct line. A little bit low on her face, so that one went over. If I remember correctly, she did that a couple times here before she got it to the right point. If you're wearing glasses, don't worry about it. This is not something that's going to interfere with your glasses. Your fingers, unless you're drastically overdrawing, your release finger should be in front of your glasses. There we go. And it looks like she's going to do one more just for good measure here. And there we go. Now, as I said, this generally will work up to about 10 yards. You can even get it up to about 15 yards. Once you get beyond that, you're back to your normal shooting, holding it down lower part of your face. So there's not much value to this beyond a really short distance. You shouldn't need to go much higher than right at the corner of your eye to change this. Again, it's just trying to get that flatter trajectory on your arrow so that you can sight in that target. What I was talking about is when you're normally shooting, you're drawing back to this area of your face. So your arrow is actually below your sight line. Your sight line then, I'm trying to do this reverse. Your sight line then is this way down to the tip of your arrow. If you're doing that at a close range, that tip of your arrow is actually going to end up either very far in front or if you're overcompensating very much over the target. If you try and put the tip of your arrow right on your target there, you're always going to go over the target. In trying to bring that up your face more, everything's backwards, trying to bring it up your face more, you're getting that sight line more direct with your arrow. So you're looking right down the arrow. Um, if I can do it from this direction, this would be your normal sight line. You're looking from your arrow down here, and your sight line is up here angling down. As you bring that up, the two of these level out. Get my hand straight here. The two of them level out so that you're looking right down that sight line. So when you put your arrow on that target at that point, you're looking right at it, and that should be where your arrow goes. Anything that wasn't clear? I know it's not a real complicated process or procedure, but it does help greatly with shooting at those closer targets. There have been several shoots that she and I have designed focused on those tighter targets and trying to get people used to shooting outside their comfort zone a little bit. Everybody in shooting 20 yards, 30 yards. We try and get people outside that comfort zone, get them to shoot different distances or shoot from different angles than they're used to. And suddenly when you get that target within like 5, 10, 15 feet of you, it's a whole new ball game trying to hit that target. So that little bit of advantage of changing that sight line to getting to that more direct sight line really helps in a situation like that.
I know that we were trying it out this summer on shooting closer up targets, and walking up your face is actually, it takes a lot of practice. It's not as easy as it seems like it should be. It feels very awkward.
It does feel awkward. At first I was a little concerned about it because I've heard a lot of discussion both ways about string walking, which this to me seems very similar. You're changing that anchor point,
Right.
whether it's on the string or on your face. So I was kind of unsure at first if this was something that was allowable, but we've never seen anybody have any kind of issues with face walking as opposed to string walking. I know I've had a lot of marshals and conversations I've had. You just mentioned string walking. They're like, no, you can't do that. That's not allowed. I don't see the reason behind not allowing it, but it's their line. They can dictate what they do and don't want to have happen on their line.
The only marshal that I've ever known to totally disallow string walking was Master Grant. And anybody else that had ever said no string walking that I know of was only repeating because that Master Grant had said so. But I've never known anyone to be able to tell me why it was unsafe.
I haven't been able to either. And somebody made a good point here in the chats, Tim Lightfellow, that it should be allowed, that we have people that shoot from their chest instead of their face for distance shoots or clout shoots. It's
right.
the same type of idea. You're changing that anchor point to get that advantage of being able to get the longer or shorter distance.
Right.
So
and quite honestly, I string walk a little bit.
I've attempted to do it. I've tried it a few times. That again is very awkward if you're not used to doing it.
Yeah. Well, when I'm shooting my shorter distances, I shoot with all 3 fingers underneath my arrow. When I shoot the longer distances, I shoot with 1 finger above. You know, it's no different. and Master Gwillem, who's Forrester Gwillem Penbross, he, you know, he's been shooting Olympic style archery since he was, you know, a kid. And he was raised on string walking. So I only knew about the argument because he and Master Grant had gotten into it. And so they've never seen eye to eye. So I've known about the argument on string walking for years, because that's where those two have been in a philosophical disagreement and have never agreed on it. And I just went, okay, well, what Grant doesn't know won't hurt him. You know, and I do, you know, Gwillem taught me how to do it, and I do it, and it's not unsafe. So.
Be interesting to see what the society marshal says about it.
Yeah, it would be. I don't think anyone's ever brought it up really for an official ruling, to tell the truth. And right, as Tim brought up, you know, it's not really any different than, you know, people shoot from, you know, some people anchor under their chin, some people anchor at their chest. You know, what really is the difference?
Exactly. And they could argue, okay, that's just a different anchor point. You're not changing where you're holding it on the string.
Right.
I think the biggest concern in all of it is whether or not it's safe with the arrow.
Right.
Because if you're changing where you're holding on the string, you might not necessarily be holding the arrow either.
And that's
I think
true.
that's where a lot of people have the concern.
Because you're not touching the arrow anymore. And that's maybe right. That's the problem, is that if you're not touching the arrow at all, then they're worried that the arrow is going to slip or something.
I think part of the concern also,
I think part of the concern, if you string walk to a large degree, that arrow is going to hit the bow rest at an odd angle and kind of jump straight up or do something the archer isn't expecting. If you're doing it just a little bit, I don't see, as you said, I don't think it's something that is going to be a real big thing. But
right.
I think another really possible concern is like the 20-yard versus 40-yard. If I've seen people string walk and they go down like 3 inches on the string. Now you're putting more stress on the lower limb and less stress on the upper limb. And so there may be some eventual concerns with equipment.
Right. And maybe
I think the biggest concern is the strain on the arrow. Because think about it. Now you've changed how that arrow is reacting with your bow rest. And I think that might, in extreme cases, put a little extra stress on the arrow and maybe cause some problems there. I'm not an engineer. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think that it would actually affect the arrow so much as it would affect the stress on the bow limb, actually.
Okay.
The only concern that I can see with the arrow, as far as that's concerned, is if you're drawing right at the arrow, your arrow is like this. Mm-hmm. The bend in your string is right there. If you're string walking, suddenly your bend in the string is down here, and there's a chance that arrow could come off the string because your arrow's straight, but the string is at an angle in your nock.
Oh, might have to do some some CAD simulations.
Interesting to
this
find
out.
out.
Yeah, I know. We have to get our local engineer to pull out his graphics programs. I don't personally have the simulation programs on my computers.
All right.
Well, one of the cool things about the NCA is you might not have it, but you probably know somebody who does.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I do.
Okay. So swinging topic back to where we were here. Any other questions about the shooting at your feet method? Okay. I'm gonna
I think it's
go
very
with-
helpful.
Good guy. I
Yeah,
encourage people to go out. I encourage people to go out and at least try it once and see what you think. Again, it's gonna be a little confusing at first because you're changing that normal anchor point. If you've been shooting for a while, your instinct is going to be to immediately come to your normal anchor point. You've got to remember to change that. You're going to know it right away because the first shot you take, you're going to go right over the target. And then that's the point where you need to bring that up so that you're looking down that arrow. So you're looking right where that arrow is going to go.